What would it feel like to abandon everything familiar? No phone, no credit cards, not even an ID. Just you, a backpack, and endless wilderness ahead. In April 2017, one man did just that. He stepped into Harriman State Park, about 30 miles north of New York City, burdened with a backpack so heavy it concerned seasoned hikers. When asked his name, he would only smile and respond with two simple words, mostly harmless. Before him stretched the Appalachian Trail, over 2,000 miles of rugged terrain, winding through forests, over mountains, and deep into solitude. For some, this would be the adventure of a lifetime. For him, it was the beginning of a quiet disappearance. Months later, in January 2018, Kelly Fairbanks was driving along Highway 90 in northern Florida when she noticed him. A seasoned trail angel, someone who aids hikers, Kelly was used to spotting the signs. What stood out first was his unkempt beard and the trekking poles that marked him as a serious hiker. She pulled over and struck up a conversation. His eyes were gentle but distant, hiding something deeper. When she asked if he was using the Florida Trail app, he simply smiled and replied, "I don't have a phone." Sometimes people just want to disconnect. She snapped a few photos, unaware she might be capturing one of the last glimpses of a man slowly vanishing from the world. As mostly harmless journey through Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia, he left behind more questions than answers. Hikers he encountered recalled a kind, quiet soul who seemed both present and elsewhere. One such hiker, a 66-year-old woman known as Obsidian, trekked nearly 100 miles with him through Virginia. She taught him how to build a proper fire. He told her he hoped to see a bear, not with fear, but childlike wonder. At mountain crossings in northern Georgia, a hiker's supply store, staff member Matt Mason met him. When mostly harmless asked for directions to the Florida Keys, Mason offered to send a digital map, but the hiker shook his head. "I don't have a phone," he repeated. Mason, impressed by the man's analog lifestyle, printed 60 pages of maps and sold them for $5, which the stranger paid from a roll of cash thick enough to raise eyebrows. The man hinted at a past in the tech industry. He spoke vaguely of his sister in either Sarasota or Saratoga and claimed roots near Baton Rouge, yet whenever asked for specifics, he quickly changed the subject. Everyone remembered peculiar details: his love for ketchup, a craving for sticky buns, and a notebook full of handwritten code from a game called Screeps, an online programming simulator. Odd for someone who claimed to be escaping the digital world. As spring approached, mostly harmless continued his southern journey. But with every step, he seemed to leave more of himself behind. It was as if he wasn't just hiking, he was erasing his existence. By April 2018, he had reached the wetlands of southern Florida. The Appalachian Trail was behind him. He told people he was heading to Key West, the furthest southern point in the continental US. Perhaps it symbolized the final chapter of his 1,000-mile odyssey. But what was he truly seeking? Peace, redemption, escape. And why, with all the people he met, did no one ever come looking for him? But Florida in the summer is not a place for the unprepared. The air hangs heavy like a soaked curtain, thick with humidity that clings to every inch of skin. Clouds of mosquitoes swarm with relentless fury, and nearly every creek and puddle hides a glint of gator eyes. Venomous snakes coil silently under low-hanging palmetto leaves. Even the most seasoned hikers struggle here. For a man who once told his college roommate that the outdoors is just the space between the car and the building, Florida's unforgiving wilderness would become the harshest test of all. The last confirmed sighting of mostly harmless came in April 2018, somewhere in the vast, swampy wilds of southwestern Florida. From that point forward, he disappeared into the green abyss of Big Cypress National Preserve, a 720,000-acre expanse of pine woods, cypress domes, and endless sawgrass prairies. What happened to him in those final months remains an unsolved mystery. Did he become hopelessly lost in the tangled maze of unmarked trails? Did Florida's brutal heat and suffocating humidity finally defeat his will? Or was he driven by something far more complex, Something deeper, darker. On July 23rd, 2018, two hikers were pushing through the thick swamp trails of Big Cypress. It was one of those mornings where even the breeze felt like steam. About 10 miles deep into the wilderness, exhausted and soaked in sweat, they arrived at a well-known but unofficial site known as Noble's Camp. There, in a shaded clearing, they spotted something odd, a bright yellow tent, standing alone. Outside, a pair of hiking boots were arranged neatly, as if the occupant had simply stepped away. At first, nothing seemed unusual, just another weary traveler escaping the sun, but something felt wrong, too quiet, too still, and then came the smell, a sharp, sickly odor that clung to the still air. They called out to the tent. No answer. They tried again, silence with unease growing in their chests. They slowly approached and looked through the mesh window. Inside, they saw what would scar their memories forever, the body of a man, curled up as though in sleep. But this sleep was eternal. He was gaunt, skeletal, nothing more than skin stretched tight over bone. He had likely been dead for weeks, maybe even longer. Hands trembling, one of the hikers called emergency services. "We just found a dead body," the voice said, cracking under the weight of shock. When Collier County deputies arrived, they found themselves at the heart of a haunting enigma. The man had no ID, no phone, no credit cards, no documents. Nothing to tell them who he was or why he had come. Inside the tent, however, were several strange clues. There was over $3,500 in cash, enough for food, transport, or a hotel, enough to survive. Enough, perhaps, to save his life. Even stranger was a small notebook filled with handwritten programming code, line after line, scrawled with focus and intention. It appeared to be related to a game called Screeps, an online programming simulator, a bizarre possession for someone seemingly fleeing the digital world. The autopsy offered no clarity. There was no evidence of foul play. No drugs, no visible injuries, no suicide. His official cause of death undetermined. He had simply wasted away, his 5'8" frame reduced to a mere 83 pounds. But why? He had money, he had food within reach. He was only 5 miles from a major highway, close enough to walk. So why didn't he seek help? What was he waiting for? Detective David Herm from the Collier County Sheriff's Office had seen his share of strange cases, but this one, it was different. In a time when nearly every moment of our lives is traceable, from phone signals to surveillance cameras, this man had somehow vanished while alive and remained a ghost in death. His fingerprints were not in any national database. No match in the missing persons registry. Facial recognition failed. DNA testing revealed no relatives. It was as if mostly harmless had never existed at all. We just don't see people go to such lengths to disappear, Detective David Herm admitted. Most people aren't comfortable being completely off the grid like that. The Collier County Sheriff's Office had little to go on, but they released a forensic sketch of the man. He was shown with graying brown hair, a full beard, and perfect teeth, the kind you only get from quality dental care in childhood. But it was his eyes that struck everyone the most. They were wide, alert, and strangely startled, as if frozen in the moment of seeing something unexpected. Or maybe unforgettable. When Kelly Fairbanks saw the sketch circulating on Facebook, she froze, her breath caught in her chest. Those eyes, that beard, that gentle face, it was him. The hiker from Highway 90, the man who told her he just wanted to disconnect. She immediately contacted the authorities and sent over the photos she'd taken. Soon, more people came forward, hikers, trail angels, and store clerks from various states all recognized the man. Each had a memory, a moment, a conversation. But none could give a name. The case caught fire online. Reddit threads, Facebook pages, and forums sprang to life. People from around the globe joined forces in a digital manhunt. They called themselves the Mostly Harmless Community, and they weren't just fans of a mystery, they became obsessed with solving it. One of them, Natasha Teasley, ran a canoe and kayak rental business in North Carolina. She devoted endless hours searching through every missing person report she could find. "I had no idea there were so many missing people in this country," she said. "It was overwhelming, heartbreaking, but despite the thousands of eyes scanning databases and photos, the man's true identity remained hidden. It was as if he'd appeared out of thin air and vanished back into it. Then, after 2 years of unanswered questions, science offered a new lead. A Texas-based genetic genealogy lab called Othram offered their services. They used cutting-edge DNA techniques, not just forensics, but full-scale family tree reconstruction. By comparing even distant DNA markers with public databases, they might be able to trace the man's lineage. There was just one problem. The process cost $5,000, money the sheriff's department didn't have for a case without foul play, but the online community wasn't about to let that stop them. Within just 8 days, strangers from around the world donated the full amount through a crowdfunding campaign. They weren't doing it for fame or reward, just curiosity, compassion, and a deep need for closure. A bone fragment was sent to the lab. Scientists extracted DNA and ran it through their complex systems, hoping for a match. The results came back pointing to Louisiana, Assumption Parish, to be exact. The man's ancestry seemed to be Cajun, with potential ties to families with the surname Rodriguez. With this new lead, investigators turned their focus to southern Louisiana. The case gained even more traction when journalist Nicholas Thompson published an in-depth feature in Wired magazine. It was read by over 1.5 million people, many of whom took up the search themselves. But still, no one came forward. The man who called himself mostly harmless remained just that, anonymous and unreachable, even in death. Then, in December 2020, over 2 years after the body was found, the moment of truth arrived. A group of friends in Baton Rouge had been following the case. As they scrolled through social media, one woman, who asked to be identified only as Marie, stopped cold. She stared at the image, the face, the eyes. She knew him. Marie recognized the scar on his abdomen. She saw the same handwriting in the notebook he'd left behind. But most of all, she recognized the style of his code. The unique logic, the specific way he structured his programming. Only one person she knew wrote code like that. She called the Collier County Sheriff's Office and gave them a name: Vance John Rodriguez. Vance Rodriguez, Zubat 1976 to Baton Rouge Yak and Larinda Dunyaya Galdi. Olakanustu Berzakaya Sahipti Vet Biljase our program Siliki Kon Usanda Sunder Res Yetnik Lidi. Ankakbu Yetaneklerin Ardeen de Darren Yerler Toskian, Ik Dunu Sonder, Kaukantilli Bur Adam Yadi Urdu, Koka Kluguber Ikis Kardes Weber de Akabel Jekmikti. Fakit Ergenlik Dindamind Alis Sinden Uziklaksk, Adedertum Baglarini Kapardik. Henus 15 Yasan Dakin, Kuranlik Bervarsizlik Ananda Kendi, Yasamina Sunvermai Kokti, Baton Rougean Kenner Indaki Bertar Lada Karnina Aits Eddie. Amakanler Ikend Yaderkan Pisman, Olduves Sunber Umutla Alini Kalderup Yardum Istamik Istadi. Tessa Dufin Gegenber Kamyan Kofgru O Nu Fark Eddie Veheisla Hastenai Yetistirdi, O Nu Hyder Tuten Amelie Atler, Eilerlian Yularda Internet Detective Lenin Dikatini Kekachek Belurjan Buryura Izzy Barakti, Lisa Son Rask Hayati, Darren Ber Depression Vechronic Yulnas Likle Gekti. Arkadaslik Larg Kissa Gummer Lidu. Iliskaliri, Iskaku Zaman Gurgan Ve Yipperda Kijik, A Larker or Taden Cable Mag, Insan Larden Tamaman Kotmak Onan Alkon Ligek Olmak 2, 2013 Bursevga Lissel Burlate New Yorka to Zinda. Unkak Bua Liski de Acker Burferda Nailers Sona Erdi. Kaden, Vance Digusel Ve Zaman. Physicsal Alaric Istismar Eden Biri Alaric Tanamli Urdu. 37 Yasina Geldigan Vance Rodriguez Orion Tech Burkigi Kalmamikti. A Lacey Arctic Onan Aduni Bile Anmag Istemiordu, Aski Sevgalisi Ondan Korkayardu. Arkadak Lari Is Onan Yintamaman Kapanma Dendamine, Gurdagini Dukanup Omus Silkiordu. Nissan 2017 Brooklyn Decade Darasinden Sessions A Ryaldik. Arkasanda Pasapertunu, Nini, Credit card larang barakti ekto andin. Atibaran gekmizinin akrlagini Adam ger I'd brocken barini denux too. İnsanlar ona mostly harmless aduni takdiler. İroniger kektin de yurek berkukaidu. Berzamanlar hayadır kalmak ikin alini kaldıran. Gzyazlarg ikin yardım isteyen o kokik. Yıllar sonra berbataklikta yalnız bazino converti. Oysa sieben parask vardi. Etrafinde yiyecek bulunurdu ve yakindaki atoyola yürüyerek. Alles mask mumkundu, ama belli ki bunu istememekti, o nu tanımak ikin binlersk nulu siferber oldu. Kimlegi son nunda ortaya kikti, fakit asıl sorular sevapsiz kaldi, Vance Rodriguez neden kendi istival bilinmezlige yurdu? Veklum kapia dayan ginden neden Jerry Dean Medi? Bu sorular, hikayasiniks my kalazan herkesi hala derinden dusen der